Next question, what is idempotency in API? So this is one of the interview questions which is asked everywhere, and you should have clear knowledge of it. And what is idempotency, how it is important, and why it is important, right? And what methods are idempotent or not. So when you make the same request multiple times and get the same response or return the same final state from the server, then you think that the API is idempotent. You just this, for example, if I go to my Postman and if I hit this API with books ID is equal to 1, yeah, and if I can hit 200, 200, yeah, as you can see, I am hitting that same request multiple times. I am getting the same response over here. So that is nothing but a idempotent API. Why it is important? Basically, you need to test out network timeout. So suppose you are traveling in train or bus and the network goes out and you did a payment. So for that you need to check that, check the logs and everything. So that is important, network timeout. Retry from the users. So multiple times there will be guys who will be pressing a payment button multiple times, or if the content is not loading or the CDN is down, they will be trying retry from the app, right? So to prevent that, you need to do payment can be done twice, as I said, right? So if I do a payment once for the same order and it takes some lag, right? Network lag is there, and the payment can be done twice. So that is one of the things why it is important. So the methods, get is idempotent, yes. Why? It is read only. Put, yes, it replaces the resource. Delete, yes, deleting twice same set, same end state. Post, no, creates a new resource. Patch, depends on the implementation, right? If we just it is like a put, then it's idempotent. If it is like a post, creates a new resource, it is not idempotent. There is a discussion going on this, like you can say put whether a patch is request is nothing but idempotent or not. So you should look into that as well. Now the classic interview questions for any product based companies. So being tested the entire payment gateway for fan code, right? We redesigned the payment gateway using Razorpay. We implemented, you can say, smart checkout and UPI payment options. So this is one of the important questions I can ask, like you can get in an interview. How do you stop duplicate API calls during payment in GPay or PhonePe, or when user repeatedly presses the pay button? How do you handle that? So assign an idempotency key to the request so that multiple identical requests are processed only once. Now here the client will generate a stable idempotent key, that is a payment ID, and that payment ID with that order ID will sit into the DB. When a same key is sent with every retry or duplicate click, backend store the key and result, as I said, into the DB. If the same key is received again, then the backend returns the original response without reprocessing. So this way you can handle this idempotency simply. Yeah. The next question is simple, right? If you press the payment button once, then you should be having a check on the front end that once the payment button is clicked, it should be disabled, right? So that easy thing, we can do it. How do you check when the API is not working? This is one of the brilliant interview questions, and many folks I have been interviewed, they just drill down. Yeah, if a endpoint is not working, I will go to the developer and I will check that. No, this is wrong, completely wrong. You don't need to do that. As that you need to first debug it on your side and then go with the logs to the developer, right? So this is one of the what you can say key thing which we as an SDET we need to do. We don't need to waste the developer time. We first need to analyze the system, and then we need to go to the developer if it is not working, or if the fix is easy, we can provide a fix. So one important skill over here, if I talk about SDET, it should be debugging. You should be able to debug the system properly. Then only will become a good SDET. Yeah, so going to the answer, right? First, I will check the request payload is proper or not, like the headers, endpoints, base URI, body, auth, query params, which are correct or not. I will check the status code, if it is a client-side error or a server-side error. If it is a client-side error, like unauthorized, check the token. If the token is expired, you should get a token expired message as well. If it is auth is expired, you need to get that auth, regenerate the auth as well over here. 403, forbidden, you have the right token, but you don't have the access, like updating or deleting the record in the DB. As I said, right, admin access, you will get that. 404, endpoint is not present, so that you need to check. 400, bad request. the body is not proper, URL is wrong, etc. Right? So as I demonstrated it in the earlier videos, so you need to check that. Now the solutions. Basically solution as in front of workarounds you need to do as that you need to tell this to the interviewer. Give your user proper permission and use valid token if the user doesn't have the access. Check the endpoint, check the deployed code by entering into the pod. Check the log, check the code, whether the particular code is present or not. Okay, so many times what will happen if you are working on a shared environment, right? And there are two people working on one environment. So your code was deployed onto the one machine, and by chance the other person also deployed this code. So your code, if it is a, you can say ephemeral infra or a pod, your code will be deleted. If the code is not in sync with the feature A and feature B is not in sync, your code will be gone from that pod, right? So you need to go into the logs, check the logs and whether the code is present or not. So from that you can identify the logs. If not present, then we need to deploy the feature branch and check whether it is present or not. But yeah, if it is still giving 404, then you need to check with the developer from the logs whether the machine route is registered or not. So if the route is not registered, then obviously we'll get a 404 over here. Correct the body, endpoint part, query param, etc. which I have said. Check the request should not be getting by the upstream services or it is reaching to the service. First we need to check like if you think there are two services, like service A is nothing but your home page service, and there is a service like you can say a product page. So from the home page you are going to the product page, but if the product service is not deployed, right, downstream service, then you will get a error over there. So that you need to check whether the two services which are dependent on each other, that should be working fine or not. Check the machine pod is up or not. If this should not be into the crashback loop off. Basically these things will happen when the pod is out of memory, the CPU utilization is more, you need to increase the memory for the pod. So that we need to look. Check the intermediate services as I said. Yeah, if the Redis is there, if it is old, right, and the Redis has not been flushed or the TTL has not been expired, you need to flush all the Redis keys. So if there is a new key which is there, if it is updated, you need to check that. Check the DB. Many a times the service is healthy, but the DB is not coming up or it is not up and running. The DB is failing, right? The pod is not getting up for the DB. So that could be an issue. So we need to check that. Pod health, CPU memory, DNS resolution, network policies. So we had one service, we can say security layer. So if you test directly the endpoint, so it is working fine. But when we are checking through that service, right, you can say a security service, that services was not working. Like the services were not going to the down path. So like you can say, I am the user, there is one service, security service, and there is another service. So once I hit my API to that security service, it was not passing through that. So you need to check that as well, whether the network policies are allowing the third party person to hit the API or not. Find out the slew queries. So many of the times, right, the guys will check it is not returning, go to the developer and do like log a bug. No, we need to find out the slew queries as an SDET. So what queries are taking more time to execute, because this will result in the timeout. And if you are using a GraphQL, so GraphQL will take the data from multiple directions and then that might cause a timeout. So you need to check the slew queries. For example, we had this order, my order page, right? And there was no index created on the created ad. Once we hit that created ad, so the index, it used to take time. So we need to create something like we need to check as an SDET the table info, whether the index is created or not. So that we need to check. Application log, stack traces, error rate, P95 and P99 percentile, that we need to check. Rate limiting, check the load balancers if they are in place or not. Feature flags. So many a times, right, we deploy the code, but it is behind the feature flag. Suppose it is given to the internal users and you are trying to access it via the external user, and there is a feature flag to it. So it is not allowing the external users. So we need to check that and turn off the feature flags if required. So this is the whole combined thing which you need to explain to the interviewers what to do when an API is not working. So yeah,